Welcome to the CEO of Destiny podcast, where you will find the tools to fulfill the purpose of your generation and wildly succeed in the marketplace. And now your host, Andre J. Benjamin.
There's something about location, and there's something that's happening as a result, and you are having impact right where you're at, in a place where others say, no, you've got to go to the big places you got to go where the big trade fairs are at, and you got to go where you can get the most exposure. Can you talk a bit about how you can prosper where you're planted versus maybe the first thing smoking out of town, I'm out of here?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think I read an article. I wish I could remember what it was even from. It was either right after college or kind of at the end of my college career, that was talking about being a lifestyle entrepreneur, that this like new wave, new generation of entrepreneurs who aren't necessarily setting out to be like, I want to start $1 billion company. They're saying, this is the way that I want to live. How do I work to do that? I mean, it would be a similar concept like the 4-hour work week, right? And so for me, like, I think that there was a time that living in a more urban environment was really appealing. It's not anymore for a whole number of reasons, but it's not anymore. And I think that it has continually, how do I want to say this? My husband and I talk about this a lot because he teaches people to fly and moves small aircraft and has a whole aircraft company in a town where people don't always know we have an airport at all. And so I think that something that I believe to be true is that if you work hard at what you're doing, and if you said, if you don't let your talent take you where your character can't. I love that statement. That, for me, I want to make sure that I'm always giving my customers like the best of my time, the best of my thoughts, that I'm giving them individualized attention. That's very important to me. I can't do that if I have more customers than I have time. And I can't do that if I'm spread really thin, which I feel like I would be in a larger capacity. And so just being able to take the process and go one step at a time. And so I think for me, the slow pace of the Midwest has been a really great business incubator. I don't think it limits what I can do. I think at one point I thought that it probably did, but I think that it paces what I can do. And I think having a pace set is always a great plan within a business. But yeah, so I don't know if that helps. In my head, I thought I'll move to New York and I'll buy a cool space and make funky things and sell to different people. And that, that might have been true, but I imagine that I wouldn't have really known the people, that I would have just, interacted with them briefly. And I think if you pour like a bunch of money and energy into things that you're not ready for, it fails. And I think you see that often in, startup companies, like what the percentages that actually make it, like it's not super high. And so making sure that you're doing well with what you have where you are allows a natural pace to happen for your business. And I think that's important.
You're naturally scaling. That is very timely with there's data that backs that in the global shutdown. Whenever you're viewing or listening to this, after the global shutdown, there's a lot of data of people when it was happening, they started to really assess the space that they lived in. And a lot of those big places that you named off, people fled out of there because they said, wait a minute, I'm spending all this for only this. And no disrespect to those coastal cities and all that, but people looked at that and they said, wait a minute, I could probably, this is what I strive for, this type of lifestyle. I could actually create that now, and I could, move to a different place. So it's just interesting that the idea to quote unquote make it big is being defined. People are redefining now almost to, okay, what is a noble and a almost godly way to look at things rather than just looking at what everyone else says is success. It's redefining that. So that very, very
absolutely. Well, and I think the other side of that too is, like I mentioned, you asked about like, how did I feel like when I made $1,000? There's probably a time that prior to that, you could have said, how would you feel if you make $1,000? And I'd be like I made it. Like that'd be the best. I'd take all my friends to dinner. And instead I was just exhausted. And Caleb and I, that's my husband, we've talked about that. Like there's lots of things that there are things that have always been like goals. Like I've always thought, man, it'd be really great to break into gold, and it'd be really neat to get to make some diamond engagement rings. And on the backside of having done that, at the end of the day, it's just a thing. Like it was a thing I got to do. It was cool. But I mean, my business is called Sandcastle Jewelry because it is a very, it is a business that is very materialistic. And I was going to need a constant reminder that it needs its place, that it's not I'm not trying to build a kingdom here.
Wow. So elaborate on why you chose Sandcastle as the name, since you just touched a little on that one.
Yeah. I think I had to name it actually right before that show because I had to have a tax ID to participate. And so you need a business name for a tax ID. And at that point in time, I was memorizing the Sermon on the Mount. And, at Matthew 7 talks about building a life on the rock versus a life on the sand. And I'm sitting there looking at like a bunch of broken jewelry and things like that and thinking, wow, this is like really, really temporary. And I'm going to need a reminder that this is really temporary. And so that was where I was like, it's a sandcastle. It's a sandcastle. It's here. It'll be gone. And, at some point, like some of my kids decide to do this. Sure. Great. They'll have a head start. But my husband realistically just told me that the old gentleman that lives across the street needs to outlive me so that he can run my estate sale because he's not going to know what to do with all this crap. So
I love it. So where can people find you and what's coming up next and where can people find you? I want them to be able
Sure. So my website is sandcastlejewelry.com. And if I'm going to be anywhere, I try and send that out on a mailing list. I don't do too many shows because I have a lot of little people now, but I will have an open house in October. So if you're in the Midwest and you want to check that out, get on my mailing list and I'll get you all that information. But I can also be found on social media. My handle is always at Sandcastle Jewelry. I think technically I hold a Twitter space, but I've never understood that mess. So same with TikTok. Don't follow me there. But Instagram, Facebook, I'm there. Everything else, I'm like, I'm too old to figure this out.
When you as we close out, what you talked about Matthew 7 or whatnot, is there something that encourages you to continue to remain creative in the times when you don't? Do you have anything that is there a phrase, is there a verse, is there anything that hits you that says, man, you know what, I'm going to continue doing this? Because like you said, it's energy creating, but people have hard stuff that happens in their life that does not make them want to, like they said, that when you got that message even, and there's other things that happen, seasonal changes, where it feels like that gut punch and you're saying, man, I just got the wind knocked out of me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when things get hard, there's like a practice that I go back to as part of I try and read Bible every day. But one of the things that I found to be really beneficial for me mentally, especially when things just feel hard, is I make lists. And so I make 3 lists and then I have a statement. So my 3 lists, well, sometimes 4 lists. So I'll make a list of things that I need to surrender, all the things that I'm holding in my head that I have no control over. There's something to me about putting it down as a bullet point on a list that lets me let go of that day and not think about it further. So what am I surrendering? What am I thankful for? So I do affirmations. I do them probably a little bit different than some people. I do, what do I know to be true? What do I know to be true? And a lot of those, hey, Nellie, can you wait just a second? I had a singer.
Real life.
Woo! And so things, what do I know to be true? I know that God causes all things to work together for the good of those who love him. Like I write like lots of little scriptures usually as part of that affirmation or paraphrasing them. And then one of the things that I worked on really over the course of 2020, because it felt like such a weird time, was just like, what would my personal mission statement be? Like if I had a personal mission statement, and that's going to be different than my business mission statement because my business isn't me. It's not exactly who I am. And so my personal mission statement, and I usually write it, and I should have it where I can look at it, but says something to the likes of to creatively serve the people around me, to cultivate my home, to steward my talents, to shepherd my children, and to bring glory to the Lord. And writing those things down, like knowing that here's what God has given me, here's what I'm supposed to be doing with it. Just seeing that in writing day in and day out during times that everything else feels like sand, finding the rock, standing on it. And that's what I try and do.
Awesome. I think that's a great place for people to stop because it makes people slow down in the midst of all the fastness. We can slow down and kind of assess where we're at. So thank you for your time today. Thank you for being a part of this show. I look forward to hearing the feedback and seeing the work that you're doing. We look forward to hearing more great things from Sandcastle because it is imperative that people are liberated to create and that people can see beauty in the things that are somewhat hard. You talked about looking at rocks and metal and things that you can see. That's a gift. My wife has the ability, she gets it from obviously my father-in-law, but they can look at spaces and that are all torn up and they tell me, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. You can see, and they can transform a space and make it beautiful. Whereas I want to see it done. I see something done. I'm like, that's nice right there. Let's get that. Let's not put all that sweat equity in. I want the event. So it's encouraging that you shared your process and I look forward to hearing more of what Sandcastle was up to. So thanks for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Do us a favor. If this was useful in any way for you, please go to iTunes and leave us a review. Reviews will allow others to easily discover the podcast. If you'd like more information and to receive a free download, Rediscover Your Destiny, go to ceoofdestiny.com. Thanks again and tune in next time.